Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and today we're checking out something very special. This is made in my area. It's made in Chicago. So this is USA made, and this is made by Red Horse. We're going to sharpen it up, by the way. I want to sharpen it up because I want to feel the MagnaCut steel that he is using on this thing. My goodness, this thing is just beautiful. I got to check it out at Blade Show. This is absolutely amazing. Now he's using this handle material that I personally have never seen on anything else. It's a rubberized G10 basically, and it feels, like Kara said it best, it feels the way G10 looks like it should feel. I mean, it is very comfortable in the hand. When it's wet, it's even grippier. It's almost like a little bit more of a, I mean, you can kind of imagine like a very, very, very hard rubber. I love it. It feels great. And the geometry of this thing is insane. I mean, just incredible geometry. Then, and this is for me because I was testing it out. This spot right here, if you look, it's perfectly shaped for your fingers, for like the pinch grip right here. And if you look, see right there, that little spot, nice little divot for my finger. If I'm wrapped around right here, just right there, bang. If I want to go up like this, like it's so comfortable up here with the way these ridges and contouring is designed. The handle being this shape and size is like perfect. Even Kara put in her hand, she was like, finally a knife that's my size, you know. It's very, very lightweight and using MagnaCut steel. Now, that's why I want to sharpen it up. There's no reason for me to sharpen this other than want, because this thing came brutally sharp. Very, very, very sharp. And it does look like a belt sharpened edge, but he does a damn good job with his belt sharpened edges. I'm pretty sure. It's a little hard to see because it's so thin, the bevels are small. But awesome, awesome job, because it is incredibly sharp. But I want to feel the steel. I want to feel the steel on the stone. I want to see how the burr comes off, because I expect him to run it in the medium area as far as HRC. Now, I'm sure he's running it plenty hard. He's probably running at 61, 62, maybe 62, 63. I'll put it up on the screen. I remember at Blade Show he said, I believe he said 62, which I would expect from something like this, because, you know, it's so thin and specifically for certain things, so it's okay to be hard, but you're gonna want a little give. So I think that's amazing. The HRC is probably he's doing it at. Look at this little chamfer. These little details, you know, people don't really pay attention to these little details when they think chef knife, because it's just a chef knife, but all these little things play a huge part into the performance. Now you see these ridges there, right there. That is going to help put a little bit of air between the thing you're cutting and the steel, so it can slip off easier basically and pass through materials a little bit easier. What a beautiful, beautiful piece. I believe he's doing other colors. I can't remember. I will put everything up on the screen, like other pictures and stuff. So beautiful satin finish. So this is a knife that could last you a very long time with everyday use, like as a chef or something like that. And I think that that's who this is perfect for. If you actually work in cutlery, or if you actually work with your knife as far as food and things like that, then this would be right up your alley. I don't expect just the everyday kitchen, you know, person, or, you know, everybody cooks in their kitchen, but I don't expect just regular people that, you know, just cook in their kitchen to have something like this, because this is expensive. It's very expensive. But, you know, obviously if that's something you're wanting, maybe you really, really like to cook, maybe, you know, you love having really high quality cutlery in your kitchen, and this would be very, very high on that list. If once you get it in hand, you realize like this is a special piece. Now, as far as being a chef or something like that, this would be amazing. And to me, I think that if you work with knives day to day and that's your job, then you better have a damn good knife. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me to not want to be passionate about what you do and having the best, or at least the best that you can afford for the job you're doing, because the performance in, you know, cutting and everything is, especially for food, is so important. And then another thing is that with food, the cleaner the cut is, and this is why, you know, sharpening edges and keeping your edge nice and sharp is so important. Now, when you're cutting, like say fruits, vegetables, or just anything basically, if it smashes the thing before you cut into it, well then now it's gonna release juices and all the juices you want in that cut. But if it's nice and clean, all the juices stay inside that cut. Another thing is it doesn't frill the edges, right? It's a nice clean cut. It helps for also thinner cuts if that's something you need. It'll make nice, very thin, slicey cuts. And the food just comes out better looking and better tasting when it's cut appropriately. So the stones we're gonna use are bonded, so they're metal bonded CBN stones, and they are by BD Tools. I have them linked at the USA Market link down in the description. They are making new versions that are going to have some metal backing because you see how these are thin. This is just a whole sheet of the bonded CBN. So the backing will be something to stick it to, so it'll be raised higher. But they do have these right now. They have a bunch of other stones too, from resin bonded, metal bonded, and hybrid bonded. Let's get into it. So these don't require any lubricant at all. So what I'm doing exactly is I'm just picking the angle I want. I want somewhat of a low angle. I don't want it to be too low and I don't want it to be high. I want it to be like in a nice happy medium area. And once I pick the angle I want, I'm not worried about matching his bevel so much. I just want to make sure whatever bevel I put on there, I continue to hold that angle. So I'm just gonna put it down naturally, exactly how I feel comfortable, and then applying a little bit of pressure, just a couple pounds of pressure, not too much, because I don't want my angle to get pushed down. Because if you're applying a lot of pressure, then you're kind of pushing down always. So I'm applying the pressure just to the edge in a decent amount, like not too crazy, but an amount of pressure that I can sustain and hold long term. Because that's another thing, you don't want to get fatigued. So my grip is a pinch grip that I'm holding, and I'm applying pressure kind of down right here, not too much where it's gonna only put pressure there, but just to where it's kind of held solid. See that, how it's like held solid? Then set it on the stone, start with the heel of the blade. So that's the first part I'm concentrating on. Like this part's not hitting right now, but that's okay because this is a belly. So I will get to the tip when I raise my elbow. So I'm not going to fluctuate my wrist. I'm going to lock my wrist in place right here, focusing right here for my edge. As I bring it across the stone, when I want to get to this area, I do not move my wrist. I just lift my elbow, which will get to the tip because of the shape of the blade. That's me just lifting my elbow. Now, once I've got that locked in and I got a nice comfortable grip that feels like I could do it, long term, I start at the heel. And if I do some back and forth motions, that's okay because I'm gonna blend it all in. You never wanna do back and forth motions without blending it all in and then hitting the whole bevel. But that's just kind of how I'm gonna get started, just to kind of groove that angle in, get comfortable. And then I'm using this finger right here to, as I'm lifting my elbow, I kind of push this into the stone and pull back. So I'm pushing and pulling with this, which is just fine. This has been tested and there's really no difference between edge trailing and edge leading. It makes very, very, very little difference. Almost no, you can't even really, you really can't tell the difference as far as results, burr removal, and all that stuff. Now, sometimes I will do single passes forward, only single passes. I don't do just edge trailing passes unless I'm doing burr removal or burr flip, which we'll talk about here in a second, but cutting it in, and now I'm doing the back and forth motions, which does get me to sharpen a bit faster than I would if I was only doing single passes. Now, Sometimes this can make you start convexing your edge because you might not be good at holding your angle. And in that case, you probably want an angle guide here so that every time you start the same angle and just do single passes. Don't go back and forth like I am, which is just fine. So like I said, locking my wrist, lifting my elbow, pushing and pulling, putting just a couple pounds of pressure on the stone with the edge, not too much. And with this hand, I'm not, when I set this finger down, by the way, I'm not pushing pressure. It's literally the weight of my fingers. Not even the weight of my arm, just the weight of my fingers. I'm literally just touching it. Now what that's doing is it's doing two things. One, it will help me isolate a spot in the blade of which is making contact with the stone. But another thing is it helps me hold my angle, because it is an indicator. Just like this is an indicator, right? I can feel if I start moving and stuff like that. Maybe the board under my hand will help too. I can kind of use it as a guide a little bit if you want to. You don't have to, just depending on how good you are at it. But these fingers right here can help make sure that if you start lifting, you'll feel it. If you drop, you'll feel it. So you kind of let them touch the metal, and sometimes it's barely touching the stone. But because our fingers are so sensitive, we can tell that movement slightly if you're paying attention. Now, as far as if I do put pressure, if you do put pressure, that will make your edge do a bow. It will basically, the spot you put pressure, like say if I put pressure right here and I actually apply pressure and not just the weight of my fingers, the edge will go like this and go whop up there. So it'll be much larger there. So don't do that. That will make it look very ugly and you will regret it. Just let it glide, no pressure at all. If you need to hit one specific area, just use the weight of your finger. That will get it. Now you can see my new scratch pattern going at an angle from the top of the bevel, almost all the way down to the apex. You see I'm missing right here. So you can see that dark line, and it gets smaller and smaller to about right there. That is the area that I have not hit yet. My scratches have not reached the apex. But you can see on most of the bevel, a little bit missing at the tip. And then this is the side we have not worked on yet. And you can see the difference. Now that will pass right there just to flip the burr over this way. I do not have a very big burr, it's a very small burr. I really didn't need to do that, but I like to do it just to get the burr out of the way, because when you sharpen one side, the burr is gonna build up on the opposite side. So I'll have a burr right here. It'll feel like sandpaper, or like, you'll feel like a sharp edge, curling over. So I want to get that out of the way. One, so it's not in the way when I'm sharpening, but two, because I don't want it to just get ripped off, because that can lead to microchipping and stuff like that. So I want it to just flip back over, and when it does pop off, I want it to naturally pop off. Now when I'm going this direction, it's the same concept. I'm going to focus on the heel. That's where I'm going to apply the pressure down, and then I'm going to take this thumb and I'm going to push like this, and then when it's time to get to the tip, I will lift my elbow. If I need to, I can hold the tip like this as I'm coming across, as I'm lifting, so that I can ensure the tip goes into the stone. Now don't lift up really high, you'll round your tip. All you want is the tip to touch the stone, no higher. I personally like my scratch pattern to go at an angle, the angle I typically cut in. Now, some chefs go up and straight up and down, and this scratch pattern will work just fine for that. But also, straight back and forth will work as well, as long as it's consistent. I just don't like to see scratches going all different angles. I typically would like to see them straight up and down, or at an angle towards what you're cutting. Because you got to think about it like a microscopic serrated blade or a serrated edge. You wouldn't want your serrated blade to have the teeth running the opposite way you're cutting. And if you do make some passes going back and forth like this, then just blend them in. It's okay if you do it. You just want to make sure you do your finishing ones the right way, or the way, you know, you're wanting the whole bevel to be. So one thing I am noticing, and these are handmade, so you know it's okay. But this side of the grind is thicker than this side. So this one is a bit smaller, a bit thinner on this side than it is on this side, which is leading me to have to lower my angle just slightly in order to match this side. Not a big deal. It's pretty common that you're going to see, especially with custom knives and things like that. And even production knives, to be honest. A lot of production knives are the exact same way. So, you know, that's why sometimes having the exact same angle on both sides is not going to always work. That's why sometimes you just got to compensate and figure out where you can match it at, so it looks nice and it winds up with the best results in the end. So I did make a mistake about this edge. So I thought that it was a V-ground edge, and I wound up saying that one side was ground a little bit thinner than the other, which is not the case. It was a chisel ground edge, meaning one edge bevel was cut in while the other one was just a micro bevel. I did notice the micro bevel, but you know, I didn't inspect it as good as I could have because I was planning on sharpening it. And this is my fault for just not checking into it and getting too excited. And you know, it's so common to see, you know, this little issue where one side is ground a little bit thicker than the other, bevel's a little bit smaller in some areas than the other side or whatever. So it's just so common to see, but I definitely should have looked into it a little bit better. But anyways, so the grind did not have any issues. The issue was with me. It was a chisel ground edge. Now I haven't decided yet if I'm going to bring it back to the chisel ground edge or keep the V ground edge that I've sharpened onto it, because this is after the video. So after I got done sharpening, I realized this. But if I do bring it back to the chisel edge, which I might, I'll do it through a couple sharpenings. What I'll do is I will sharpen just one side and remove the burr from the other, letting the other V ground edge bevel that I've created now just get smaller and smaller until it goes away. So that way I don't have to remove a bunch of steel that I could use, right? Because it's still perfectly fine just the way it is. So I'll decide if I'm going to do the chisel ground edge later. But this was completely my fault, not theirs. The grind is just fine. I just need to do better research before I get too excited. I've had plenty of knives where I've done 17 degrees per side, and one side has a much smaller bevel than the other. Now, typically, if that's the case and you're on a fixed angle system, just work on the smaller side longer and it will work itself out, or at least get close to matching. Because by working on the smaller side, you will be removing steel from the larger side, you know, until it evens up. This is a good reason why not to only follow the burr. And this is why I say follow the scratch pattern. I even, you know, people were arguing with me in my comments, you know, about me saying follow the scratch pattern because, you know, they were saying all you gotta do is follow the burr. But that's not true, because like in this case right now, I got a burr instantly on this side. My bevel wasn't even close. It was basically a micro bevel, right? And then this side has a nice large edge bevel on it, and this side would have been a micro bevel because of, you know, these reasons, and it's a common thing. So you want to focus on the scratch pattern to go from the top of the bevel of whatever angle you are trying to sharpen at, and make sure that the scratches start at the top of the bevel and work their way down to the apex. When they hit the apex, you can see it. You can see it with your naked eye in most cases, but get yourself a jeweler's loupe if you need to. And then you can also clear the burr, flipping it over. You can knock it off if you need to too. And then work on it again at the angle now that you are setting to see if it develops again. See the burr here. Now you can see me being able to push it over with my finger. Now that's not always possible. Sometimes they're just too hard or too stubborn to push over, but in this case I can see my burr very easily. Now I'm going to flip my burr over and I'm going to move to the 325. Last one was an 80. Now you want to make sure that you bring up a burr with every stone. If you're not good at noticing the whether or not it's a burr or if it's just the old burr that flipped over, you can knock it off and reapply it. But like I said, paying attention to the scratch pattern is the best indicator, because you can see the deeper scratches are getting covered up by the lighter scratches. And once the deeper scratches are completely gone, you can see the new scratches from the finer stone has replaced the old ones from the top of the bevel, down to the apex. Then you know that you're going to be getting, that you should have a burr or be getting one extremely soon. Well, we'll go to the 650. I'm going to remove my burr really quick, doing edge trailing passes from tip to heel, no pressure. So I'm just letting the edge touch the stone, and I'm doing edge trailing passes. Sometimes I do a little bit of a J, and that's just to kind of get the tip, so I can let the tip go that way on the stone and then let the rest of the edge go up. But I will do some edge leading passes as well, because I want to clean the burr off completely really quick, because I want to get a little feel for my edge. Okay, so to finish this off, the sharpening. Sharpening went very well. So the burr that I was showing you guys that you could see flaking. Now, while I think it has a really good heat treatment, I do think it's a little bit more on the softer side, because the burr wasn't popping off when I was flipping it back and forth with my finger. It wasn't like just like popping off. And then when I did do the burr removal, it did take a couple extra passes on the stone, and it didn't just rip right off. Now, it did pop off nicely, though. I'm not going to say it was a difficult burr to remove, anything like that. It was perfectly fine. And so I feel like it has a good heat treatment. I don't think it's like a very much on the harder side. I don't know what HRC it is. I'm sure I'll put it up on the screen. I wanted to feel it on the stone, you know. But yeah, it feels like it's good heat treatment. Just doesn't feel like it's extremely on the harder side, which I would expect from something like this. There are going to be some custom makers that do go heavy on the HRC, and then some, you know, that are going to be around the happy medium range to preserve a little bit more toughness. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But the point is that it needs to be a good heat treatment. This is a very, very good heat treatment. And the edge came out extremely sharp. Like brutally sharp. This thing is nightmarishly sharp. And There was a couple inconsistencies in the grind. One of this side is ground a little bit thicker than this side. So I did have to work on this side a bit more. And then there's a spot at the heel where I didn't get all the way. Now I could have gotten it, but I would have had to sharpened it in a way that my bevel wouldn't have been super consistent, which is fine. I just didn't want to do that. So I'm gonna allow this little piece that's right at the heel of the blade to just come out on the next sharpening. I don't want to remove more steel than I have to in order to create a very sharp edge, because from there to there, or from heel to tip, pretty much it's the bevel set. Just a one little spot right there. And on the opposite side, it is hit. You can see it's smaller because, like I said, it is ground a little thinner on this side, which is very common, by the way. So I'm not, taking any points off for that or anything like that. It sharpened up beautifully, felt really good on the stone because of the handle. It feels really good sharpening it. This is an incredible knife. I am very, very happy to have this. Just the size of it, and like I said, even with sharpening, the size of it feels really, really good. And then, with the way these cuts are, with the size, my goodness, this thing is just, it feels so natural. Like I could see somebody that actually is a chef, because I'm not a chef, but somebody who actually is would probably really be able to do incredible work with something like this. At least I imagine they would. So yeah, great job. All in all, as far as cutting food and stuff like that, it slices like a dream to me. I'm not a chef, so I'm not going to make it look as beautiful as somebody who is would. But I do, know the ease of cutting and stuff like that when it comes to cutting meat, vegetables, fruit, stuff like that. And yeah, this thing is absolutely incredible. I'm freaking loving it. Yes, it does have a high price tag, but it's USA made in Chicago, and it is in very premium materials and done extremely well. So I'm not too mad at it, but yes, it is on the heavier side. So, that's just something you have to consider for you and what you're willing to put in to your, your cutlery. But there you guys go. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.